So obviously you're out there, you're seeing the changes, that take place in the auto industry, and there's some pretty drastic ones actually. Regarding the average dealership's approach to digital marketing, how are you looking at those trends? What are you suggesting to them? What kind of strategies can they adopt? Are you looking at people kind of pushing back, trying to stick with the old ways, or what's your overall take on it?
Well, I think you see certainly a mixture of some of the dealers that are going with what they know, right? Which is, the old ways, tried and true, but they're becoming dinosaurs. If you're not reinventing yourself every couple of years in this industry, you're going to get left behind and you're going to be in trouble. And it's amazing the actual number of really good old school dealers that I've known for years and years and years that have been able to reinvent themselves. They've learned the digital aspect, they're watching their attributions, they're much smarter about how they're marketing their money and where they're spending their money, and particularly when it comes to digital and leads and how to manage that. In fact, the best dealers now, that's where they're experts at, versus 10 to 15 years ago, it was experts of driving floor traffic and driving liner ads in the used car paper and doing a mail sale and hitting those big weekends. Those guys have all developed, the good ones have all developed, reinvented themselves and become digital specialists.
Now because they're hiring, are they hiring kids out of school? Are they, because I've noticed that they're, at least in ZipRecruiter, you see a lot more dealerships looking to get people who are in digital advertising. Do they necessarily require people who have an automobile background, or are they just looking for people who are good at social media? Are they hiring younger? Are they hiring older? Or is it like whoever fits the bill?
That's a great question. What I've seen is kind of a mixture of both. So the really top performing dealerships are doing it internally, and they're not necessarily going out and searching to hire those people. In other words, they're educating themselves so that they can inspect what they expect, right? Really, and I think some of the other ones, the lower end stores that know that they have to get something done, but aren't willing to take that investment to learn on their own, are going and making those hires. But the problem is there's nothing to check up on, right? You don't know what they're doing is going to be valuable if you don't have the expertise yourself. So, is it available to do that? Sure. Does it work that way? Yeah, I've seen some stores that have hired some great younger guys and gals with not automotive experience and be able to go out and center around that. But truly the best ones have been the ones that have done the education themselves. They've reinvented themselves, as I said earlier, and most importantly, they got to the education factor so that they knew how to do it and did it themselves and executed it. That's really the factor.
Which is interesting because you talk about being able to actually know what's going on, being able to follow the lead through the sales life,
yes,
the cycle. So we've noticed massive issues with actually lead follow-up. I think it was Inside Sales that did a report that some ungodly amount of leads are rarely followed up on.
Yeah.
Almost 80%. I surveyed, I want to say 334 used car dealerships. I found that only 19% of them actually replied to a lead form, and of the 19%, 78% were just no reply, stock. No reply, auto response.
Autoresponder.
So from that standpoint, I talked to Eric Schwartz. You know Eric? You might know Eric. Yeah. He was telling me that that's something that they have to look into. They have to sort of kind of focus on a little bit more. Is like email inquiries. Another case study we found was that another company had 499 leads in their spam folder.
Yeah, sure, unmatched.
Yeah, exactly. So how are you training dealerships and management to proactively pursue these leads, and what kind of what CRMs are you suggesting for them to use?
Well, the first thing is, we believe that there's no such thing as an internet department anymore. The entire dealership is truly the internet department. And what I mean by that is they should be really working the lead from cradle to grave. And then the best case scenario is what we refer to as a Shark Tank, which is the first one that grabs the lead, gets the lead, and then goes from there. You already have an inherent competition built into most stores and certainly in our business. And any good CRM should be able to provide that through the internet lead management system. And then, of course, the bigger factor, which is don't make internet email love to them. And what I mean by is don't sit there and do the autoresponder or email templates or sending emails. You need to try to get them on the phone. This business is still really about effacing and discussing. Email's great, give them the information that they need, but at the end of the day, focus back on what our priorities are. These are just leads and opportunities are just coming from a different source. That's really the only difference. And consumers expect more information and they expect it quicker. So if you can combine those things, you're going to be way ahead of your competition and certainly the game. And it doesn't surprise me of hearing those statistics that high on leads that aren't followed up with. Look, even cut it in half. If it's 80%, cut it in half and say 40%. It's still a tremendous number that don't get followed up with. And obviously even higher so when it comes to the pre-owned side.
So it's interesting. Some of the people that we've talked to, they have the internet sales guys and a lot guys, the physical dealership guys. And you're saying that the best thing to do is to not have a separation between the two, but you get a lead on the internet side, work that lead till you make the sale.
Yes.
But do you find like with most dealerships, because that's more theoretic, but do you find that most dealerships are sort of like the internet guys, and then there's the guys who are working the lot, and there's a competition between the two? And then how do dealers manage that?
Yeah,
because a guy might come in on the internet, or make an internet, and then he just shows up on the lot. Sure. Now, how are these guys going to fight over the carcass?
Yeah, and the truth is what? The truth is there really is no what we used to call a fresh lot up. Every single person that comes into the dealership has searched online prior to getting to the store, and most likely they've done it on that dealership's website. So I think that to even have the setup to be split is probably ludicrous at this point. The second thing is, to your point, who knows how they first originated, and now I have an unhealthy competition. That's not a healthy competition, that's frictional. And I think it's important to make sure that we really remember about the customer's experience. And the customer doesn't know that there's a different person that answered their email versus that might be the lot person or the fresh up. And I think that's ridiculous. I think that we should give the customer experience a much smoother one-person transition throughout the entire transaction. And I think what you'll find is, number one, it'll speed it up. Number two, the experience is going to be better. And then number three, that equals typically a better customer satisfaction indication. And then, of course, you're going to make more money. The more times they get passed off to different people, there's too much room for miscommunication. There's too much room for consumers not feeling very good about the transparency of the transaction. So really, it's pointless to me to have two separate teams for what in effect is the same customer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Last question. What is your opinion on a salesperson's approach to dealing with the web or a phone inquiry? You pretty much maybe gave me 80% of the answer already. Is there a trend to be more transparent with pricing and inventory availability, or is there still pressure to drag a prospect into the dealership? And I'm speaking mostly towards millennials because that seems to be the growing consumer base. They don't like the advertising, they don't like the heavy pressure. I'm sure most of us don't like the heavy pressure of a car dealer. So how are and I've called, and I've test called, and I've obviously shopped for cars, and I kind of feel the same way. It would be nice, in my opinion, if somebody would simply say, "Here's the price. We have X amount of inventory on the lot, and happy to, if you could find a lower price, talk with you about it."
Yeah.
But I don't really get that so much. I get, well, come on in, on in, and then, and they kind of avoid that. What's your philosophy on that?
My philosophy is really stayed the same from today as it was even 10 years ago, and I firmly believe whether it's online, it's on the phone, however that experience is, if I'm always either not giving the information back to the customer that the customer is looking for, I think what a consumer says to themselves is, if they're this hard to deal with now, how hard are they going to be when I get there, right? And that immediately turns them off. So I think that A, you have to give them the information that they're looking for. B, I think you have to do it in a timely manner. C, I think you have to be authentic and genuine, and that means, look, if you have the vehicle and you have the inventory, great, you do. If you don't, you don't, but here's our resolution to that. I think consumers are much more open to that type of experience and transaction, more so than we think they are, right? We're still under this whole that they got to buy right now and this instant gratification. I don't think it's that way. I think if you give the consumer an opportunity to do the transaction the way they want to, based upon true information that's authentic and it's given to them in a timely manner, I think they're going to opt to deal with somebody who provides that to them 10 times faster than the one that treats them a little bit differently, puts the hard close, the high pressure, you got to come in right now, even if they have the car, right? I mean, I think that it's really more about the experience. Dealers are still catching up on that. Consumers may be a little bit further ahead than we are, but I think that's based upon some of the other things that they do in transaction based now, whether it's Amazon, all these things are different. It's we do so many things now like Amazon in our normal business lives. We've already transitioned that way, right? But our business hasn't yet. So I think we have to catch up a little bit to those other things. And that was a really long-winded answer to tell you, look, give the information. Give it quickly, give it timely, give it professionally, give them options. And consumers are always going to be happy about that. Whether they end up purchasing you from not, you're still going to have a good, valuable resource. And look, maybe they've got some other people in their house. Just because I don't sell them doesn't mean I can't sell somebody else. And I think we've forgotten that too. It's not a one and done. It may not be the experience in terms of the car, but I gave them such a good experience. They're going to talk about it to their friends, and I'll get the next one.
Two other questions.
Sure.
And I'll give you the first one is where, and I didn't include these, but it just came to my mind. Where are we going? It might be the last question. Where are we going with pilotless cars? How is that? You might not have given this thought. Where is that going to take a car dealer? Let's say 25, 30 years from now, when most of the cars are probably going to be pilotless. How is that going to change the horizon for car dealers?
I think it's a great question. The industry as a whole will make... There's one thing great about this industry, which is it always finds a way to hit whatever curveballs are thrown at us. Whether we look at after 9/11 in the economy, whether we look at 2008, 2009 in the economy, whether we look at Firestone issues with Ford. I mean, we could go through a litany of very major catastrophic changes in this business, and we always find a way around it. My thought is, it is well into the future in terms of it having a true impact. I certainly believe and love all of the Lyft services and Uber right now, and I see where that's going, and I do believe that the automated vehicles will become a part of that. You see that with kiosks right now inside of fast food, and particularly over in Europe, because it's so hard to hire people at that pay level and get it out of them. I could put 4 kiosks up, have one person, and I just saved what would cost me 4 people. So again, it's back to what's the consumer experience. We're already there. I think it's well down the road because of laws. How do you handle insurance that way? I think there's a lot of other things that will have to be really overcome first that people haven't even begun to think of. And they're going to be major. Now, in terms of business, I think we'll find a way around it. Whether that's they'll get retailed out of the same dealerships, and that the major manufacturers will lead that front. I think that's what you'll see. I think the major manufacturers will lead that front in those autonomous vehicles, and I think those vehicles will go right through the normal channels that they're going through now. There's something about everybody wanting the latest and greatest. And the iPhone's a great example of that. The top one's like $1,149, right? And that's a laptop computer price. And yet I guarantee you there'll be lines out the door to get it, and I doubt that it's going to be much different than the phone that I have in my hand right now.
Maybe a better camera and some more features.
I mean,
but not even phones. The phone part is just a small feature of it. They do so much more.
It really is.
I tell my kids, where's your computer? So they go, Dad, it's a cell phone. You go, Did you ever make a call out?
It's
I get
yeah.
one call a month from you. I get texts.
Right? My kids are the same way. My kids are the same way.
And social media on it.
Yeah, and I think that's the way, we look at the distribution of the vehicle is going to be the same way. Just because they're autonomous doesn't mean people aren't going to what's the next one, what looks cooler, what different technical features are on it. I don't think the buying cycles are going to change a whole lot. I don't think the distribution is going to change a whole lot. I think there's a lot of other things that have to change a whole lot, as I mentioned, like insurance and laws, and how do we get around that. But I think as far as business-wise, I think the business is still pretty solid, as long as the major manufacturers are on the head of that.
I'm almost wondering if people even have to buy a car at that point.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? I'm going to order myself up a Bentley today.
Yeah.
And Bentley's going to cost me, for 2 hours, it's going to cost me $150. And a pilotless Bentley comes up. I wonder.
Well, yeah, there's ones now that you can even do, monthly leases on, right? You get a new car every month. I mean, there's a couple of there's a couple of new deals of guys that are out there. Scott Painter, in fact, who started TrueCar, has got a deal out there that he's doing a monthly payment deal like that as well. So take a look at that. But there's a couple of different things out there right now that are all along that same line. It's almost like the bicycles in Paris, right?
Yeah.
You pick it up from one spot, you drop it off at another, and you just paid for the 3 hours that you had.
We're doing right now with
even
Uber
zip
bikes.
cars. And
Yeah,
stuff like
same
that,
thing.
Zipcar.
And now there's Uber Foods, and I mean, it's like really rad to have all these cool things.
All on demand.
Yeah. But again, dealerships are going to have to keep up. If they don't, everything's off the board. Everything's off the board. If they don't make the changes, everything's off the board. Because consumers ultimately, that's the great thing about capitalism, is consumers ultimately make the decision with the almighty dollar, and that's what they'll do.